This is Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie.
It's a body hot girl voice. This is Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie. I'm Ernie.
Do you have the symbol now? And I'm Robert, who's loving the new symbol. It's two. There's my camera. Two nerds and a joke, which is actually an interesting point. It is the number two, not the word. There is a significant difference there, and you won't find us if you use the word two, only if you use the number. But for those of you who are gloriously enough following us on YouTube, which I hope you all are, of course, all 60 or 70 of you, we do have a guest with us today.
Yes.
I'm excited. He's not the joke. No, the joke is the comedy. Here we go. No, today's is actually kind of fun because we actually have somebody on the show who's like, I think, probably the most famous person we've ever had, relatively speaking. He's up there.
He's up there.
He's up there. He's up there with the. We have some big nerds. We had actually the guy who did the novelization of The Killing Joke on.
Yep.
So he was pretty cool. He was a cool dude.
Yeah,
he was pretty sweet. But we have RoShawn, and how do you say your last name? Is it Briscoe? Do I have that right?
Yes, it is Briscoe. Like County Jr.
Okay, just want to make sure I had that right. and RoShawn, you've done a lot of stuff over your career, just like in general. You've done a lot of different things. You've done theater. It looks like you did Shakespeare.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started out in theater.
Right?
Yeah. I started out in theater. I have a bachelor's in theater from Rowan University, and one summer I interned at the Delaware Shakespeare Festival. It's a professional. Yeah, it's like a professional company, and like you understudy and you play some of the smaller roles. But that year, they do it every year in the park. We did A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Very nice.
Classic.
And I mean, it was so fun. I played the Wall and Mustard Seed, one of the fairies.
Oh, very cool.
What range?
Well, that is a huge range there. And when you look up and you came out when you first came to, and you came to Hollywood what now, 8-10 years ago, easily?
About maybe like 6 or 7, 2013.
Really? Okay, 2013. Oh, so you were out. Okay, because I saw your first movie was 2013, so I didn't realize that was your first one that I saw. But you had a kind of an interesting challenge, is that you look like somebody. now with your current style of hair and your beard going and your little salt and pepper, not so much. You have your own look now, but you did at that point look like somebody else. So you had to come up with a unique tagline. Tell me about that story, because it's pretty funny. I was amused.
Okay, so for some reason, and I really didn't see it at first, people seem to mistake me for Kenan Thompson, the old Nickelodeon star, SNL superstar, the longest cast member ever. And when I first moved to LA, I was on my way to a job interview, and I'm just walking up the street in West Hollywood on Melrose, and this guy, he sees me and he thinks that I'm Kenan. So he runs over to me. He's a huge fan. He hugs me, he scoops me up in the air, and he's like, Kenan. I'm just like, oh, nah, that's not me. And then it looked like I broke his heart. I was like lying. I'm like, no, I'm not Kenan. But then it just kept happening over and over again. It's I actually went to a movie premiere of I want to say it's American Spy. Something came out like a few years ago. It's based on a book.
Right.
Yeah. And I was actually talking to one of the writers of the movie, and we was building like a great rapport. I'm like, oh man, this might be a little thing I can weave my way into. And then when I gave him like my card, and he read the name on the card, and he realized that I wasn't Kenan Thompson. I watched his face have that epiphany. And, and he immediately became disinterested in anything I had to offer, even though we had like this great energy and this vibe going. I'm just like, well, I'm cheaper. You know,
work for scale.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably get me at a third of what you would have paid him.
And come on, you can. I'm the best you're gonna get at a decent price, and I can have range because you have range. Like, I've seen your stuff.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
You do. You have some great range. You have some very serious, like, drama ability. I saw that in some of the clips. Which do you think you're better at, though? Do you think that because of your hashtag and how you kind of presented that your comedian side is stronger? Or do you feel that your drama side is stronger? Or do you want to go outside and be kind of the... Because you've done some directing, right?
Yes.
So where do you feel you lie at this point, especially with everything going on, right?
I mean, it's so weird. I am good at drama, but as far as comedy goes, I don't know. I have like this energy. I make people comfortable and like feel welcome. And I used to not, pursue comedy as hard because I always like, I'm a serious actor. I want people to take me seriously. Right. But it wasn't until I embraced, because laughing and joking is so ingrained in who I am. Mm-hmm. Once I really embraced that, as far as the business side is concerned, that's when like more doors just started opening up for me. Because there was times where I played roles or auditioned for roles that weren't inherently funny, but because of how I am, and I brought that to the role, there's like, oh, I never really thought of that as being funny. It just started opening up more lanes.
And that's kind of interesting too, because you can take yourself either direction, but you found that being yourself was actually the best way to go.
Yes. I think as far as, because audiences are smart and people don't like fake stuff. We recognize authenticity. So if you can find a way you be your most authentic self, I think that's what's going to resonate most with audiences and fans.
So when you were just discussing that, you said that you got your degree in theater at a college in Jersey, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you moved into Shakespeare. Like you said, the dramatic roles and everything else, and as far as comedy goes and acting, isn't it like just choices that you have to make? Us like you have to look at the script and you're basically making a choice of, how am I going to deliver this line? Am I going to like put my own personality in it? Like you said, like kind of make it funny in a way? Or is it something like you're listening to the director and the director basically tells you, all right, I need you to be X, Y, and Z. How do you approach that?
That's part of the challenge. You get some material and, you're working on it and, you locking down like the circumstances and, you're thinking of like, what is it that, my character is going for in this scene? How am I going to get it? And then, a lot of times you might come up with something and, the director or the creative teams might be like, that was good, but, I see, because ultimately you have to bring the director's vision to fruition. So if he's like, what, we kind of going this way, and you just kind of have to adapt, on the fly. And that's really like the challenge. It's always kind of fun. Like when I'm looking at a script or if I'm like, writing some stand-up material, it's kind of like a puzzle, and it's fun for me to kind of, figure out like the moment to moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember a story that William Shatner was talking about in the early days of Star Trek, where he was just handed a script and he had to come up with his own, like, getting shot with a phaser, even though like there's no phaser, right? Because all the special effects are done later. So he had to come up with, well, how is that going to look? Like, how would somebody act? Like, do you ever find yourself like looking at the direction, like you were saying, like looking at the scene, the character, kind of like that?
Well, first of all, like green screen work is
that's
I imagine I haven't had the pleasure of doing any green screen work, but I imagine it being terribly difficult, to sitting there talking to some green dudes, green backgrounds, and then you have to kind of imagine and create the environment around you, just kind of get like the sense memory, of like the wind, and if it's like an action scene, there's going to be explosions and cars and things you have to like hurdle over. You just have to commit, to the world, to using your imagination.
Well, one of the scenes that I always found such a weird, like if you take yourself out of the scene and you did this, one of the things on your reel clip shows you kind of talking to this dude in a car. It was you and him in a car. You're kind of talking back and forth. It's so weird to me if you take yourself out of a scene like that and you're thinking about, okay, how are they doing that? Obviously, they've taken the windshield out of the car, right? And there's a huge or some sort of camera right there that's panning back and forth between the two of you, real close up, I'm assuming, as you're talking. So he's shooting to him, shooting to you, shooting to him. Getting in that moment, like, I'm talking to this dude. I have to ignore that huge ass camera that's like 6 inches from my face.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's got to be like the first thing. I mean, when you're first starting, right? Because again, it's been 6 years, so you're still kind of new. That's got to be so hard to get over and get past that huge camera. And you're here. You want, as you said, real. It's real.
Right. Well, I think me having a background in theater first helped with that, because in theater the audience is always there, right? You hear them, they react to things, but there's always that imaginary fourth wall between you and the audience that you normally don't break, but in some creative circumstances you might break it. And they do it in film and TV too. I know Saved by the Bell was notorious for breaking the fourth wall, but just coming from the theater and having that fourth wall training, kind of help facilitate, because when you're on like a huge set, there's so much going on. It might be like 50 people just in your immediate area. You got the gaffers, you got the grips, the DP, all the PAs, everybody standing around looking at you, and you just have to. I think the most dynamic acting happens when you stay focused on whoever you're in the scene with, and just being in that moment, just being present.
Yeah, because the challenge I always felt was that the script reading. Like for me, I have a horrible memory. I mean, and Ernie, you can attest to this. I can't remember jack. That's why he's my facts and figures guys. He always comes with facts and figures. I can't remember jack. Half the stuff I say is wrong. It just is. I don't remember it right. It's got to be like, because coming from theater, you've already kind of had that experience, right, of memorizing lines. Is it easier in movies and and TV shows than it is in theater? Because no, it's not any easier.
Definitely not. So this is the thing, when you're doing theater, pretty much all the plays, it happens chronologically, or whatever. So you learn it. Plus, you have like a 3-month, 2-month rehearsal period.
Sure.
So you're learning over time. Television by far is the most grisly of grinds. So like on a film, they might shoot 3 pages, 4 pages a day, maybe, over like a 45-day period for like, most like regular movies that aren't super big tent poles. We talking about like 120-page script or whatever. Television, say like for an hour drama, you might have like a 50-page script, but you have to, they have to film it, edit it, and do all the processes in like 7-8 days. So you don't have that time. And sometimes, you'll get a scene. Okay, these are the scenes that you're doing tomorrow. You might have like 3-4 pages, big monologue. When you show up on set, they had rewrites over that night. So now you're on set trying to learn new material. It's just, it's not for the faint of heart.
So one of the credits I noticed when I was looking on your IMDb was that you did some camera work also. You've done your own filming?
Mostly like in college and some stuff out here when I got in LA, because I mean, we all have the tools now. It wasn't like it was like back in the 90s stuff. We have the tools now to be creating your own content. And if you're not, especially if you're not auditioning, if you're not, you have like a lull in your bookings, then you should be creating your own content, practicing your craft, and just, putting yourself out there.
So when I remember listening to a discussion a while back between some people that were in the business, and they always talk about like, oh, this guy always knows how to frame a shot. For instance, they were talking about Zack Snyder. He's like the best at like framing shots. Do you ever like look at other people in Hollywood and say, you know what, that is something new I've never seen before. I like that. Who comes to mind?
That's such a difficult question.
He's got people impressed. Don't put him on the spot.
Yeah. No, because I'm not. I mean, I've directed like 2 short films. That's not really my lane, but I have done it. I like I like a lot of auteur directors. People who if you took a scene out of their movie, you automatically Quentin Tarantino.
You all right?
Or Spike Lee. He's famous for like the dolly shots. Yes. Like, they just have like that aesthetic, that feel. That is them. You could be flipping the channels and you see a Scorsese film, that's Scorsese.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and you said Zach, you talked about Zack Snyder earlier. He's very much an auteur, director as well too. He has a very specific look and feel and energy to the things that he does.
Right, and it seems like a lot of the the big heavyweights do have their own like little like thing that they put in all their films. Like JJ always does like the red flare,
the lens flares,
and stuff like that. So
yeah, okay. I gotta say though, I don't need to see flashes of light in my film to make the film more dramatic. Okay, I don't need extra light. I mean, hell, I have enough trouble lighting here. Okay, in my little corner. I'm not gonna have lens flares to make me feel cooler. It's a cool effect, but it's like, really?
How about the guy who shot Close Encounters of the Third Kind? I think his name was Milos or something like that. Like, that's a beautifully shot film.
Oh, Milos Forman?
Yeah, beautifully shot film. But when you talk about like more auteur, like Q, I call him Q because we're like this,
Oh, yeah, best friends. It's amazing.
Q, Quentin Tarantino, Spike Lee, Martin Scorsese. I think Martin Scorsese.
Christopher Nolan.
Chris Nolan. Wow. He definitely has his own thing. Like, ever since Inception.
Yeah.
Definitely rewrote everything, I thought.
Right. But, probably the most impressive thing that I can remember, and this came out a while ago, and I remember after, I can't even remember the director's name, but after they did this, everybody else was trying to copy it. But you remember the kind of like in the Matrix, the even with the bullets and
bullet time.
Yes.
And how she would jump in the air and then the camera would rotate around.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, so originally they wanted Will Smith to play Neo in the Matrix. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, they wanted Will Smith, and Will Smith actually, when he started doing social media, he talked about it too, because he was like, it's one of the worst pitches he ever heard. He didn't he couldn't see what they were trying to explain because nobody had done it. And he was just like, yeah, this is stupid. But he also said he was glad he wasn't cast in it because he don't think he would have done it any justice. It would have been that you can't see nobody else but Keanu in the Matrix.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, at that point in Will Smith's career, he wasn't as an actor where he is today.
True.
He just wasn't. He was funny. He was a great actor.
If we think about the Matrix time frame, that first one was what, 90s, right? 99?
Yeah.
I think
something like that.
I think he did Wild Wild West, and before that he did
he did Wild Wild West after. Like that's the role he did after he passed on the Matrix.
Okay.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. He wasn't ready for it. In Wild Wild West, while it was an action and he was a hero, it was still heavy comedy. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. I mean, Men in Black. Men
in Black.
Come on. It was good action, but it was
earlier in the story he did 6 Degrees of Separation too, which is
that's true.
But it's just something about like when you get older, just that life experience you have, you just start doing your best work. So like in the beginning of like Matthew McConaughey's career, he very much was considered like, you know, just like a little pretty boy, thing like that. But
all right.
He's still kind of the pretty boy. Let's not fool ourselves. Come on.
but in the latter part of his career, like he's doing like the types of roles he's doing now, opposed to like when he first started. He's been doing outstanding work.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
The last one I saw him in that really like I was really shook after watching was Dallas Buyers Club.
Right.
Yes.
Really and I thought he was great in Lincoln Lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah. He was real edgy in that one. Now you were talking about like you preferring drama, and this was something I heard from other.
But no, I prefer comedies.
Oh, you prefer comedies. Oh, my God. Comedy.
Ernie, get it right. Come on.
This is something I've heard from like other comedians who like kind of dabble back and forth in drama. They are saying that comedy's always going to be harder because laughter is spontaneous, right?
Yes.
So being able to pull that, like you can have written down the best set you've ever done. You go out there and deliver it, and nothing happens.
Oh, it's so funny because probably about a year before coronavirus, I started doing stand-up, and people have been trying to push me to do stand-up for years. And I always like reserve myself, saying I'm like, you know what? I know I'm funny, but that's not my type of funny. I'm not sure if I could do that. And
pull off an actual routine, like, you know, a set, if you will.
Yeah, you know, like writing jokes down and delivering them. You know, I used to at the time I was doing some improv. I performed on like a sketch team. I was doing those kind of things. So I'm still very much a comedian, but it wasn't until like a few years ago I had got sick and I took like a break from acting.
Right.
And I was just sitting around, but I wasn't being creative, and that really bothered me. And I remember this was when Joe Coy's special, Netflix special, Coming in Hot, had came out. And I had put it on in the background.
Yeah.
Because I had never heard of Joe Coy. I was like, who's Joe Coy? It was just on like my Netflix, you know, suggested. So I put it on the background, and I'm working on some other stuff. And he does this bit about like a hula dancer. And I remember it being like so funny. And I had to stop. I was like, who is that? I was like, hold on. This is funny. I need this from the top. Yeah. And it was watching that special. I was like, you know what? Okay, like I'm gonna try like stand up. And I just completely fell in love with it. But you know, when I started going to like open mics and doing shows, you never know how something is going to land. And open mics, sometimes it's hard to kind of judge the material because comedians won't laugh at comedians. Even if they think something's hilarious, they'd be like, huh, that's funny. Yeah. But they won't laugh at it. So you're not getting that feedback. Right. And I remember like the first set that I was working on, when I did it after I got finished workshopping it at the open mics, and I did it in front of like a live, like paying audience who, you know, came to see a comedy show. And it almost threw off my timing because they laughed in places I wasn't expecting them to laugh.
Right, because you're workshopping it in the wrong, you're workshopping it in the only environment you can get into, but it's not the right audience. They're real, you know?
Yeah, you know, and open mics are hard because, you know, half the comedians, they're going over their sets in their head. They're thinking about it, you know, they're doing other things. They're thinking about other things except for sitting there listening to you. Right. So you can go to like an open mic, grab everybody's attention, and be having them laughing out loud. You know, what you got right there is gold. When you go to like a live audience.
Yeah, definitely. Well, see, Ernie, we need to do that.
I was gonna drop some names of some places, maybe thinking the Laugh Factory, the store, the shop, I think they call it. Is it the Comedy Store?
The Comedy Store, yeah, the store.
Yeah.
So much history.
I was gonna say, like, everyone who was anybody like made their start there, and you hear the stories of like the sets, like they would still have them like written down on like little legal pads, like you have
napkins,
Jerry Seinfeld, Eddie Murphy, all in like one night, right? And it's like, how did this happen, right? And I guess you got kind of a glimpse of that. Is it really that tight knit, like the comedians in LA?
I mean, the comedians. I mean, this is kind of like the mecca for like stand up. Well, in comedy in general. I would probably say the mecca for stand up is probably still more New York, because in New York, when you're workshopping, so like if I'm workshopping something, I can in one night I could probably perform the same set at 3 or 4 different places because of how the city is, how everything's set up. It's near impossible to do that here in LA. Yeah,
because it's so far apart, right? I mean, just physically.
Yeah, I mean, everything's so spread out. Plus, there's things to do in New York until 6, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Sure, you don't have to.
I mean, you can't serve alcohol past 2 o'clock here. Once you can't serve alcohol no more,
nobody's staying out. Everybody's going home.
The fun's gone. So, but I mean, no, there is like a huge community. Even though they're like having some like problems now.
Yeah, because all the places are still locked down, right?
Right. I was going to say UCB has like a huge community. Groundlings has like a huge community, and even like you kind of find your tribe when you're doing like stand up, and you'll see like if you're like on the scene, you'll start to see same faces over and over. It's like oh. I saw you over here at this mic, and over here at that mic, and and as you start to like work up and be able to do sets, I mean, because like doing an open mic at the Laugh Factory, the Comedy Store, the Improv, man, it's
what's that like? Is it like they showed on TV where it's like nerve-wracking? Like,
I haven't done any sets there. Well, because they're so big. And those are like the places, you know what I mean? Like those are like the meccas of doing places. It's hard to get up because they'll do a lottery system. There's a lot of places that do like a lottery system. And like the Laugh Factory, the Improv, Comedy Store, they have a lottery system. So if sign-ups like at 5, you better get there like 3, 2, maybe even earlier that.
Sure.
Excuse me. They're going to take like the first 100 people or whatever just to sign up on the list, but maybe only 20 people are going to perform. So you got to hope that your name is drawn. So you might get on the list, but then you're waiting around 5-6 hours praying that your name is called. And if your name is called to do your 3 minutes, your stuff better be tight.
Oh, damn.
Because they're going to be like watching, I feel like sometimes sometimes as artists, maybe even as like a culture, as a country, we've become obsessed with like immediacy. We want something immediately, right away. We've kind of lost our patience, and that doesn't give us the opportunity to develop and grow like we should. You don't learn the lessons you're supposed to learn because you're so busy trying to get to the head of the line. There's a quote that I love. It was like, you can't take the elevator to the top for success. You have to take the stairs.
You have to work. You have to work for it. Yeah.
Gotta do a little work. So I heard on the other side of the coin of your professional life, on the other side of that, you have a little bit of a hidden nerd inside you. Because it is our show. It is what we do here, is we reveal the inner nerds of all of our folks we have come on, the secret things they do that aren't have anything to do with their real jobs, just like us. And what is yours? What makes you smile like, that's my thing. That's my jam right there. What does that for you on the nerd side?
Probably Naruto, the anime Naruto, and video games.
Oh, gamer.
Okay. Yeah, nice. I'm actually starting to dabble into doing video game content. So.
Ooh, that is a growing field. Now we got to start on the Naruto side, because I have seen clips. I've seen bits. I've seen a couple episodes. I know the characters because everybody at any con ever, 90% of them go as one of the characters. I've seen them. Couldn't name them on a shelf, but I know they're there. And on top of that, I've seen so many TikTok and YouTube and just people acting out the scenes and pretending they're characters from the show. And it's just huge. It's huge. And it's been going forever. So what drew you to it? Was one of those peer pressure things, or was just you just, oh, look at that. That's interesting. You just kind of you fell into the lake of Naruto there.
Well, when I was younger, I used to do martial arts. I think before I like had stopped, I got like a brown belt in
Oh,
Tung Sudo,
nice.
which is
What kind?
Tung Sudo is like a Korean martial arts,
Okay.
similar to Taekwondo.
Okay.
And so like I've always been drawn to like martial arts type thing. And Naruto is about ninjas. And who doesn't love ninjas?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
You know? And I mean, it's basically about like these ninja society. But what really drew me to Naruto, like the title character, when he first started out in like the very first episode, he's like a knucklehead, because he kind of like had like a rough upbringing that, like he grew up hard.
Right.
Everybody, he was actually shunned by his village because he was something called a Jinchuriki, which in the Naruto world, they have these 9-tailed beasts, which are like these huge like beasts with immense power. And if a village is able to capture one, what they do is seal it inside somebody, and they kind of use it as like a weapon, as a deterrent. Like, don't mess with us. You know, we have a tailed beast.
We got a weapon. It's like a nuclear weapon in the middle of your town. It's like, we got one of these. Leave us alone.
Right. So as a result, a lot of Jinchurikis are kind of like shunned, like so he was ostracized as a kid. So he would act out to try to, like recognize me, because he's a child. And in the beginning, he was like the worst. He couldn't do like the most basic jutsu clone transformations. But as you watch over time during the show, he goes from being the worst to being the greatest ninja of his generation. And he did it all by sheer will and hard work. And I think that's dope.
And I think that's why he has such a huge following too. I think that's part of it, is that, he doesn't have a magic wand or a magic weapon. He is a weapon, he's a living weapon in that sense. But everything he does is because he put actual work in.
Right. He came across of his own volition. It's because he wanted it.
So now, just to sidestep that, one of the other things that I noticed, like you had some in your background before you got into acting, you also served in the Army.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, my time in the military, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. The best thing, in my opinion, about the military is the people that you get to meet. Over the years, I did 2 deployments overseas, one in Iraq, one in Kuwait. And it's so funny. So like in high school, I was like one of those kids, I didn't really like school. And I usually just got grades good enough to be eligible to play sports. As long as I was eligible, I just did enough to do that. And I used to drive like my teachers and my grandmother crazy, because it's like, you're smarter than that. Because I figured out if I ace all my tests, I didn't have to do any homework, and I can kind of pick and choose what kind of classwork to do. As long as I aced all my tests, it'll kind of balance out. Right. And that used to drive some of my teachers mad, because it's like, clearly you can do the work. But it wasn't until, because the first time I went overseas to Iraq, I think I was like 19.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was just a babe. I was a pup. And, seeing there was still like a lot of destruction in Iraq from like the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the things that kind of stuck out to me the most is we were kind of like in between like these two like towns, and like it was like maybe like the distance, maybe like 20 miles or so, like 20 miles or so apart. But like dead smack in the middle, it was like all this nothingness and like desert. It's like 120 degrees. And there was these kids just playing, just like out in the open, like in nowhere. And I remember driving by and we were looking, it was like, where are the adults? You know? There were like some kids who were like barefoot, and I was just like, that was the first time, like, because you see people on TV who like live in like really impoverished situations, but you're kind of disconnected. But to see it like up close and up front, I was just like, man, I have like all this opportunity and I'm squandering it.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's really sad too, because there is a lot of poverty in America as well. Of course, not to get too serious here, but when you go and you're able to see the world, if you will, and you're able to see what it really could be, how bad it really could get, and you're able to come back and have opportunities. I mean, you got to feel some kind of way that you want to, do something.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
So I mean,
that
that was like the kick that I needed. So
yeah. Well, that's good. Because Ernie is a brat of his own type. He traveled the world as part of the military, of his own right.
Air Force. We came from the Army, so every year I root for Army to beat Navy.
now you said you was in the Air Force?
Air Force.
Okay, yeah. I grew up in Dover, Delaware. So Dover Air Force Base was literally around the corner from my house.
Wow, so you saw the big planes. You saw the bombers.
Yeah.
But the one thing I tease Ernie about is he always carries a quarter with him, just in case.
Oh my gosh.
There's a plane that needs to be taken apart.
The challenge coin?
On a McDonnell Douglas F-15, you can remove all the rivets with the quarter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's my joke. He always has a quarter on him, just in case there's a jet that needs to be taken apart or put back together. You see a pilot on the middle of the desert in Iraq, and you're like, I've got a quarter. I got this.
Right here.
Air Force Base, home of the Nomads, the 33rd Tactical Fighter Wing. They went over in the first Gulf War, and they lit up the sky, took down all the MiGs. They had the T-shirts, largest MiG parts distributor in the world. I can't find my shirt anymore, but
I used to hate on the Air Force. I remember being overseas in Iraq, and
go on.
So
the fly boys,
like when I first went there, they would have because it's the desert, they want you to stay hydrated. There'd be these huge pallets of water, like 1 liter bottles of water. You just take one and drink it. But a lot of times, the water is hot. It's a challenge, getting ice and stuff to make the water cold. So the unit I was in at the time was an intelligence unit. So I got certain perks and stuff too. But the major that I was with, he had to do some business with somebody in the Air Force, and he brought me with him. So I went there, right? And then the first thing I noticed about the building they were in was that it was air conditioned.
We gotta have air,
air. And then I noticed, and I see these things in the distance. I'm like, what are those? And then it hits me. Those are deep freezers or whatever. And I go over to one of them and I look it up, and it's just like a pile of steaks. I'm like, yo, this is some bullshit right here. I open up another one, and it's water bottles, but the water is frozen. It's not even water. It's ice. I'm like, yo. And then one of the Air Force sergeant, he's like, yo, you want some? Of course. So I'm taking all these bottles, and it's so funny, right? So I'm trying to hide the bottles. I get back to our side, with some of my
Air
buddies.
Force guys are a little spoiled.
Yeah. So I'm with some of my buddies, and I'm trying to hide the frozen water that I have. And one of my friends is like, hey, Brisk, what's that you got? I was like, what you talking about? I don't have anything. And he's like, no, you got something. Then I dropped one of them. And because it's ice, it's like ting, ting, ting. He's like, oh, hell no. He's like, you got to shut. He's like, that's not even taking care of your battle right there. He's like, that's not the Army way. We a team.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's good times, though.
No, yeah. Like you said, you always meet the people you'll never forget from those times, man. You'll never forget the people you come across and the things that you see. It stays with you. And like coming back here stateside after being in Europe for 4 years. You realize, man, I really, really need to straighten up here and and appreciate what I got.
Right. We grow into ourselves.
Oh yeah. So you only did the one tour, the two deployments and one tour, and you were out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was in for 10 years.
Okay.
I spent most of the time in the reserves. I did the 2 deployments. I did a lot of temporary duty, different places, Fort McCoy in Wisconsin, Fort Lewis McChord in Washington State, Fort Dix in New Jersey, different places.
Did you ever like? Now I'm kind of guilty of this when I see like military stuff on TV, and you see the guys come up with the big fruit salad on their uniform.
Oh yeah.
You're like, yeah, none of that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. One of the things that gets me is like the beret. I'm like, the beret's always jacked up. I'm like, that's not how we wear the beret.
Yeah.
At all.
You don't get in trouble if you wear your beret that way. It's like, what are you doing?
You have Jean-Claude Van Damme wearing it wrong. You got
I'm like, y'all ain't shave it down or nothing. like who's your technical supervisor? Because I mean, there's a lot of like military personnel now too who are getting into the industry, who are serving as tech supervisors on shows like SEAL Team 6, the SEALs. I think it was like on CBS, and like a whole bunch of other shows to bring that like extra layer of authenticity. One of the other things, it was an episode of
reality, if you will.
Yeah, I think it was an episode of a TV show called The Brave. No. It was still SEALs on CBS. And one thing, like when there's like a NBC attack, that's like a nuclear, biological, or chemical attack, you wear your gas mask. But what a lot of people also don't know is they have something called a MOP suit, stands for military-oriented protective posture. Because a lot of people don't know, it's not just about breathing it in. If you get like VX or whatever, mustard gas or whatever on your skin, it's still going to kill you. So you have like a whole suit, rubber boots and gloves for that. So, I forget the actor's name, but the main star, they had like a whole scene where they had to like put on the gas mask, but they don't put on like the mop suit and stuff. But they're not going to have their main star wearing a gas mask the whole episode.
No,
you got to be able to see his face. So there's certain concessions you have to make, for, the sake of like the show.
Right. But still, it's kind of like, come on, guys.
I'm like, dead.
Yeah. My father was, he served in the military. He was in for 29 years. He was a senior master sergeant in the Air Force. And I remember he would come back from TDY, which is just temporary assignments. And he would come back and he would always bring his suit, right? And I'd always like put it on and everything. And my dad would be like, wait till you're older and you have to run around in the heat in that. And you won't want to put that thing on.
Oh, like the jumpsuit?
Yeah. Like literally, like everything's all in case. Like I said, Dad, can I borrow it for like Halloween one year? Let me tell you, I was so miserable after like 30 minutes of walking around in that thing. I was like,
oh man.
Yes.
So imagine, like like the Up Armor Humvees or whatever. Like the windows in those things, they don't roll down because then that would be like defeating the whole purpose.
Yeah. They're like really thick too. Like they're completely
The doors are like 100 pounds, super heavy because it's made to like withstand a blast from like an IED.
Right.
You know how hot and stuffy it gets in those things?
What do you mean there's no air conditioning in your military grade Humvees? What the heck, man?
No, it's like, I mean, there is, but it's not cold.
Yeah,
no,
like circulating hot air.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's 120 degrees out there. You're not going to get anything better than just circulating hot air.
It's like everybody in the car is just going this.
Yeah. It's an air fryer.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're wearing all your battle gear too and everything.
Oh yeah. You got your IBA with your plates and stuff. And,
it sounds like a lot of fun.
No, but I share the same thing. Like that's the one thing. Like I can't watch some. Like I have a problem watching some war movies, like Saving Private Ryan, Flags of Our Fathers. That stuff kind of bothers me. Like it's a little too close. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Do you see like more of those epics coming our way? Because they kind of died away for a little bit, right? Like we haven't seen something like that in probably what? I think the last one was Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah,
maybe, or Fury too. I think with the tanks.
Yeah, with Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf, which I thought acted brilliantly in that movie. But
yeah.
Wait, you giving Shia LaBeouf a compliment? What? Wait. Shia LaBeouf is getting compliment. You don't give him compliments.
Fury is the exception.
Give him a compliment. Do it.
The best movie he was in was Constantine because he died. Okay,
Oh.
No, okay.
Shiloh died at the end.
No, hold on.
Glorious.
We're gonna have to walk that back a little bit. The best movie he was in was Holes.
Oh my God.
Touche, sir.
Holes.
Yes.
Not play no games.
Yes. Shia
That was a
LaBeouf.
Nickelodeon movie, wasn't that?
I don't know. It's for children.
Yeah. With Sigourney Weaver was in that movie. Yeah.
From aliens to holes, how can you go wrong? I mean, why
Eating
not?
them peach flavored onions. I love peaches though.
Oh, that's hilarious. That was a good one too. But oh man, so you've gotten such a wide variety of things that you've gotten on that you've been able to. You've done the karate, you've done the army, you've done the movies, you've done the directing, you've written some stuff. You're a Naruto fan, and you have all these big things going on in your life. Obviously, Corona's kind of put a bunch of stuff on hold, but what do you see that you want to do next? When things get back to the new norm, whatever that looks like, what do you really like? Okay, we're back to it. We're full steam ahead. What's next for you? What do you really want to do?
I mean, because what I really want to do, I want to have like my own sitcom, but like the multi-camera, like how he has to have in the 90s. And they started to kind of make like a little bit of resurgence.
Okay.
You got like The Neighborhood on CBS. There was like the Carmichael Show like a few years ago. Because, we kind of like went away from like the multi-camera comedies to like the single camera. But because I feel like the multi-camera like sitcom is kind of like the best of both worlds. It's film, but then it's also kind of like the theater aspect because you have like the live audience that's there and you be able to connect with them. I always kind of saw myself as like doing a show and then going out into the audience after the show, meeting the people, thanking them for coming out and supporting and things like that. I would love to have a show that I wrote and produced and, do that for a few seasons. I think
so would you want to star in it as well, or would you want to sit behind?
Absolutely.
So you're going to write, direct, produce, and act and star in your show.
Yeah.
Well, I have to commend you on that. I think that's the best way, right? To deliver your vision and your style and everything, kind of like the way Roseanne did in the 80s.
Right.
You had Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld in the 90s. Then you had like Friends in the 2000s, kind of like we're doing this our way, right?
Right.
I want to have that kind of control. So for you, like that's your goal. Would you want now, because the new media is out there, like you have Netflix as a player now, and you have Amazon and all these other ones. Would you be just as content if you got one of those deals, or
I think I would almost like prefer to do like a Netflix or HBO or like a Hulu, mainly because like if it's like or maybe like a cable network, because if you're like on one of like the networks, you're beholden to like regulations,
right? It's a lot stricter.
Advertisers,
right?
Advertisers, yeah.
Like if you have something controversial, if you try to tackle something that's controversial in your show, for like the greater good, and mom group decides they don't like that and start complaining, and then have advertisers pull out, then the network's probably gonna, because that's how they make their main revenue, selling ad space on the networks.
Right. Yeah. So these days, if you really have something you really see a vision of it being XYZ way,
right?
Streaming services are the thing. So do you have that written? Is that like your pocket project that you have that sitcom already kind of planned out as what you want? Or is it
I have like outlines of stuff. I have outlines, of like some like movies and stuff. I would really like to kind of have like a company like a Kevin Hart.
Okay.
Like I admire his like hustle.
He's done some seriously good stuff for himself. He has a real nice, tight organization going for himself.
You know what I mean? Like he's doing like satellite radio,
yeah.
movies, TV. He's doing digital content.
Yeah.
In the mobile space.
Yeah. I mean, you got to have a team for that. And you've got to have, 6 months of stuff planned out kind of thing, because you got to think about all the different platforms. But you got the right team in place, you can be just as relevant, if not more relevant, doing that kind of stuff. I mean, hell, you mentioned earlier Will Smith's getting into that social media space now. Why?
Because his social media is so good.
I know.
Like when he discovered YouTube, and it's almost like he didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
And then he just discovered it one day. It was like, this is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his TikTok stuff is hilarious. I mean, it's great too, because he's like, I'm going to do the shots that everybody's doing, crazy shot. And then I'm going to show you how I do it from behind the scenes. It's great.
Yeah. My favorite one was when he got Dave Chappelle to help him, and he did stand up for like the first time. That was a good episode. And Dave, it was funny because Dave was telling me, he's like, you're Will Smith. This is going to go great for you. Like, because you're Will Smith. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he's got a great comedy chops too. It's not like he doesn't know how to do it. He just kind of pulls it to any role.
Right.
And he's great.
And Dave Chappelle probably wrote his set, and he probably memorized it. And because he's Will Smith and everybody already loves him. Yeah,
it's very hard to go wrong. And Dave Chappelle is another genius. I mean,
he's so. Dave Chappelle's like one of those, like, I feel like every so often, and whether it's like a sport, like a painter, a musician or something, somebody like, they just come, like their mind's so different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do you think of this stuff?
Oh, that special about him moving out to Ohio and sitting out there, the way he painted that whole scene, I could see it in my mind. Like the guy walking in the front of his yard with a shotgun on his shoulder, and he's like, "What do? I'm waving."
Yeah, it's the thing. I think the thing that's most special about Dave Chappelle is his extraordinary ability to tell a story.
Yeah,
even if he's able to go on stage and command your attention 30 minutes, an hour, and not tell one joke.
Yeah,
and you're like sucked into it. You want to listen to him.
Yeah, and it's great too, because he seems like he's such a great person outside of that, and he seems very socially aware of the world around him.
Yeah, he seems very genuine. Like the fame didn't really change that much about him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he lives on a farm in Ohio.
Yeah,
and it's Dave Chappelle.
Yeah,
he just got the Kennedy Center Award for being one of the greatest comedians ever.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I saw recently, speaking of underappreciated comic artists, John Leguizamo did a special.
Yeah, you talking about the one-man show?
Yeah.
It was like the history of Latinos or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. I was blown away by that. I mean,
the chalkboard alone, me being Hispanic, when he did that thing on the chalkboard, and here's Pitbull, done. I was done.
But again, he's such a storyteller,
Right. There's always he's a fantastic, actor as well. I mean, there's so many actors who technically aren't like stars. They're not like huge, big like superstars that are like so like good, like the Delroy Lindos.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't even know their name, but you see them in everything.
Yeah, they're the character actors.
Before his passing, Chadwick Boseman, right?
Right. Oh my God.
He was in a lot of things. People remember him for Black Panther. I get it.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of other things that he stole the scene.
Yeah. I mean, he was like on the verge of playing like every major Black historical person ever. Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
Jackie Robinson.
James Brown. Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah.
He's everybody.
Yeah. Hey, good for him. Historical roles are such a weird thing to get into. It's like, I'm going to play historical roles of this culture or this group or whatever it is, and you're like, you've got to have a certain gravitas to your ability to be able to do that.
I mean, especially to like play like a real life person who like lived and breathed. I mean, that's such a heavy responsibility. I know there's a TV show coming out. I think it's about has something to do with like Aretha Franklin and something other stuff.
Oh yeah, Davis, right?
Yeah, I think so. And my homie, he actually did a few episodes that he played Martin Luther King.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's gotta like, okay. Deep breath, dude, because that's a role.
That's the role.
Yeah. But no, but he done it. He got that role. I mean, he auditioned for it and stuff, but he had played Martin Luther King on the stage. Because he had did that, somebody saw it. You know, he kind of got
he has some cred already.
Doing that kind of helped bring that to fruition for him. So
Right.
I mean, I'm so excited for him. I can't wait to watch it whenever it comes out.
So that brings another question to my mind. Do you now, being an actor, actors have different styles. Are you more of the method actor, where you have to like totally immerse yourself into it?
No, I mean, there's so many like I kind of stay away from the method stuff personally.
Okay. It's a hard road to go. I mean, it's really hard.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand like the method entirely. Because the method is based on the teaching of Lee Strasberg, which is based on the teachings of Konstantin Stanislavski, who was the father of modern theater. He's the person who brought realism to like theater. And the Moscow Art Theater went on a tour. They happened to stop in New York, and the people in the group theater saw it and was like, what kind of acting is that? And then they started doing that. But Lee Strasberg kind of taught techniques that Stanislavski himself abandoned. And the big thing that a lot of people don't like is the technique called effective memory, recalling past events to bring up emotion in you. And I kind of feel like that's not, for me personally, that's not healthy to kind of like relive trauma. And some people have problems. I read in a book how one actress, she used to do that, and she did like the effective memory, and for like a heavy dramatic scene, she was crying and everything like that because she had used something that kind of happened like a year or two prior. Like she had like a boyfriend who tragically died. Well, the thing about recounting personal experiences, so later in the day, she had a scene where she was supposed to be the happiest in her life, but she was still carrying that tragedy of recounting that experience earlier. Right. So she never kind of satisfied the director the way he wanted because she just couldn't shed that.
Ooh.
Right. Versus just straight acting in the moment and just being in that scene.
I believe, like Stella Adler and some other people, the imagination is a very, very powerful tool, and if you learn to use it properly, it'll give you everything you need. You don't have to relive some traumatic event. And I don't want to do that.
Right. No.
Well, I heard what was it, an interview that Jerry Seinfeld had with Jim Carrey, and he was talking about that time when he did that biopic of Andy Kaufman, and how Jim Carrey said, I lost myself. I was actually Andy Kaufman. And he's like, and I couldn't like get out of the role because he had dove so deep into it. He really believed that like he was channeling Andy Kaufman from like the other side. He said it weirded out people. He said, he said, I went out to dinner with a friend of mine, Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas Cage was like, dude, you're weirding me out. And he goes, you know how messed up you have to be to weird out Nicolas Cage?
Very much so. Very much so. So it sounds like you got a huge road of possibilities coming up here for you. For anyone who's interested in hiring our friend for professional work, of course, we will have links to, you'll send us the links you want us to use, but I know you have your website, your official website. I know you can find him on IMDb, of course. I did find your resume. I don't know if that's your official resume. It has your company that represents you at the top and all your movies on it and your picture and video. So I found that online too. So there are resources. You will provide us all those so people can hire you directly and say the Turner sent you and you'll get instant success guaranteed.
Maybe you do like what Tyler Perry did and just like shoot all the episodes and sell it as a whole, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Perry, he's a boss. The studio he just built in Atlanta It's bigger than any movie studio campus. It's bigger than Sony. It's bigger than Warner Brothers. They shot Black Panther there. Disney paid Tyler Perry to shoot scenes from Black Panther there.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Amazing. Yeah,
good for him. Good for him.
Hopefully,
and of course, well, of course, follow the two nerds. You want to follow us because we're now that we know a celebrity, we also can now call ourselves minor celebrities.
I'm not a celebrity. You got these.
Hey, you've been in more films than we have that we're willing to talk about. Anyway, but you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and of course, wherever you get your favorite podcast, which is always us. Make sure you follow us. And of course, we'll put links in for our fabulous guest, RoShawn here, and all of his resumes and his film clips so you can see him in action. That will be fantastic. Ernie, because today is just all about the movies and it's all about acting. Could you put some feeling into it for once in your life and really do the scene like you meant to? Get me a skull. Yeah, get him a skull. And give us a closing that's worthy of the last scene of the movie. Freeze frame it.
Peace out.
There you go. Peace out, everybody. We will see you next time.
Oh, this is so ridiculous.
And that's another episode of Two Nerds and a Joke. Follow Robert and Ernie on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe to their YouTube channel.